Hey guys, Kenny G, Double G Studios here. Hey, today we're going to make a drawer. You know, when I first started doing woodworking, I really struggled with drawers, and I'm not sure why, because I've worked with fabrication in the metal field, doing metal fabrication all of my life, measurements, you know, all that. So when it comes to making drawers, I struggled, and I really don't know why, but nevertheless, I got it figured out, got over that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make a video and show you how I make my drawers. But this isn't for a project or a job or anything. So what I did was I just found a couple of scraps from the last door project that I was working on, and they happen to be 3 3/4 wide by about 3 foot long. And we're just going to cut these up into pieces, and we're going to make a drawer. So really, I'm just showing you the process of how I do this. So just hang on, stand by, and let's get started. You know, really a drawer is just a box, and like I said before, I struggled with it. As simple as it may sound, sometimes I just really had a hard time. So anyway, we've got our scrap here, and we've got enough material here, we can make any size drawer that we want. So just to kind of keep it simple and just show the process of what we're doing here, we've started with 3 3/4 wide, and we are about 44.5 inches long, which is irrelevant. So what we're going to do is just chop this up and get 4 pieces, and I'll show you how this all goes together. Okay, so we've got our pieces here that are 3 3/4 wide. So we're just going to pretend that our drawer is going to be 3 3/4 tall, and we're going to make the drawer, we're going to call that 16 inches, but you can substitute the length of your drawer for whatever it happens to be. I'm just going to make these 16 inches because we're just showing you the process. So what we're going to do, we need to cut 2 of these. So I'm going to cut one. And what I find is easy to do when I'm just cutting 2 only, or maybe 3, whatever, just get the piece you just cut nice and flush with the next piece. You just make a little mark. And we're going to make one more cut. Okay, now we've determined that our drawer is going to be 16 inches long. Now we need to decide how wide it's going to be. And I don't know, we're just going to call it, we'll just call it 8 inches, but you can substitute my measurement for however wide yours needs to be, because every drawer is going to be different, obviously. So we're just going to go with 8 inches. Okay, same thing we did before when we cut the sides of our drawer. Just going to make sure we're flush at the other end, make a little mark. Okay, now we have our sides, back and the front. The joinery we are going to use is pocket holes. All right, so there's the shape of our drawer. I like using 3/4 inch birch plywood to make my drawers with, and pocket holes in the front and the back. That seems to hold them very well. You know what? I've probably built a couple hundred drawers like this. You just put a little glue and some screws, and I haven't had any issues with any of them whatsoever. So our next step is going to be to get our pocket holes drilled, and we'll get the drawer bottom put together. But before we do that, we're going to have to cut some grooves on the bottom of all 4 sides of this drawer, so that we've got a place to put our bottom in, and we're going to use 1/4 inch birch plywood for that. So hang on, and we'll get the saw set up, and get some grooves cut in this so we can get the bottom in, and we'll keep moving forward. Okay, so the first thing we need to do when we get set up to make this groove cut in the 4 pieces that make up our drawer is we've got to get the depth of the cut set first. So I push the fence out of the way, and then I come in with my square that I've already set at 3/8 of an inch. And I just like to do it like this. Seems to be the easiest way. I just set it here like that, and then bring my blade up to the square. Done. Okay, same as before, half the distance of the thickness of the material, which is 3/4 inch birch plywood. I always like to do it in halves like that. So we've got our fence, or excuse me, we've got our depth set at 3/8 of an inch. Next thing is to get our fence set at 3/8. So we're just going to slide that over to 3/8 right there. Lock the fence in. Done. Okay, now we've got our pieces cut to make up our drawer. We've got our depth set at 3/8 of an inch, and we've got the fence set at 3/8 of an inch, half the distance of our material thickness. But before we make those cuts, what I'd like to do is, I do this every time actually, is we're going to take a scrap from the same material that we're using, same thickness, everything's the same, just a scrap cut off from there, is we're going to make a pass in there and make one cut. Then we're going to bump the fence over just a little bit to get the width of the cut to match the thickness of the material that we're going to use for our drawer, which is 1/4 inch birch plywood. Now the blade of the saw is only 1/8 of an inch, so we make one cut and then we bump the fence and make another cut, and hopefully we only got to do it one time, and the bottom will fit in just right. So here we go. We'll get the vacuum turned on. All right, we're good there. Okay, so everything is set. Gonna need a push stick. Okay, all right, here we go. And just because I like to check things as I go, I know I'm set at 3/8 of an inch, but it's just kind of a habit. I have a piece of a broken tape measure here that I like to keep handy so that if I just need to take a quick measurement of something, it's just laying right there. And I can set this in there and I can see that it is exactly 3/8 of an inch in depth. And we are 3/8 of an inch from there, so we're good. All right, so there's our first cut. So now what we do is we're going to run all these pieces through. Okay, we've got first cut on all 4 pieces done. So I'm going to bump this over just a little bit, and I'm going to make another pass with my test piece. And by the looks of it, it looks pretty close. All right, so we've got a scrap of the 1/4 inch birch plywood that we're going to use. Made my first 2 cuts, see how it fits. And it's just a little bit tight. So what I'll do is I'm going to bump this over just a tiny little bit. And then we're going to make another pass. And there it is. It's a little bit loose, but I can live with that. What you want here is for your piece to set in the groove kind of snug, but you don't want it real loose, because if you get it too loose, it rattles around inside of the drawer. It's a little annoying, but it's really not that big of a deal. But I'm okay with that. I think that's going to work just fine. So our test piece was successful. Now we're going to run our 4 pieces for the drawer. Okay, we've got all of our grooves cut. Next is going to get some pocket holes drilled in the ends, and then we'll be ready to get it put together. All right, so we got to have 3/4 there. What that does is sets our machine to drill 3/4 inch material. All right, so we're set 3/4 there. And we want to reset the depth of our cut. And our tool here has a handy little guide on it. So we're going to set that at 3/4, and I'm going to tighten up the collar right there. Let's make sure that's good and tight. All right, we're good there. Okay, so on a piece that's around 3 to 4 inches wide like this, really all you need is just a couple of screws at each end, and you'll be just fine. But one thing you want to keep in mind, I like to cut my groove before I do the pocket holes, so that I know exactly where the groove for the floor of the drawer is going to be. Then I know where my pocket holes got to be, because I've made the mistake before of putting the groove in the wrong place, and then when I go to drill my pocket hole, the pocket hole interferes with the groove. So that's not a good thing, obviously. So I like to keep things simple and not get too critical or technical about things. So I make the groove cut first, and then when I go to make my pocket hole, I can just eyeball where it needs to be. For instance, like on this one here, I'm going to make it flush at this end. For the bottom, this is either the front or the back of the drawer. It doesn't matter. They're both the same. So I'm going to flush it up, flush on the left right here, and then that's going to give us our hole to the left. Let's get our vacuum hooked up here first. Okay, now that we've got that set, we're ready to make our first hole. Okay, now we're away from our groove. We're not going to interfere there. So now that I've made that one, I'm going to move it over to the left, and I'm going to flush it up on the right-hand side. There we go. And something else worth mentioning too is before you make your pocket holes, be sure that your groove is to the inside, because this is the outside of the drawer. This is the inside where your groove is. I've made the mistake of putting them on the wrong side before, so just something to keep in mind. Okay, so there's one of them. And also worth mentioning too, and another mistake I've made, is you only want to do pocket holes in the fronts and the backs of the drawer. You don't want to drill the holes in the sides, just the front and the back. A front and a back to our drawer is I like to sand all of my pieces before I put them together, because when you make a box and you try to sand the inside of it, it just doesn't work very well. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use some 220. I like to lay down a blanket so that the wood isn't rattling on my wood surface here. All right, so we're just going to give it a quick little sand. Okay, now on the fronts and the backs, I'll only sand the inside of the piece. This is the inside where the groove is. That's the inside of your drawer. I just sand the inside because you're not going to see the outside, because on the back is to the back, and obviously you don't see it. And on the front, this is going to get covered with another piece, which is what I call a false drawer front. So on the front and the back, we only need to sand the inside. All right, so now we got all of our pieces sanded and ready to go. Next step is going to be to put them together. Okay, we got all of our pocket holes in, and we're ready to assemble, but there's a couple things that we need to keep in mind here. One thing I did want to show you is when you're building a drawer, a couple things you got to keep in mind, and one is that when you're putting a drawer together, your front and back need to go in between your sides, like so. You don't want the front attached like that. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but going through the side, if you were to go through the side of the side piece here with your pocket holes, well, you're going to see those pocket holes. Not only that, it's not very strong when you got the front of the drawer with the handle on it constantly being pulled on. It's not a very strong joint if the front of the drawer is at the front of the side. So the way to do that is to put the front and the back in between the two sides. Then our pocket holes are at the front and the back. The pocket holes get hid in the front from the drawer front, and then in the back, obviously nobody sees those. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to set those like that, and I'm going to go get a clamp. And I've seen guys using fancy jigs and corner things and all that sort of stuff to get these drawers together, but I'm pretty simple and I like to keep things simple, so we're going to do it this way. We're just going to put a little glue. It doesn't take much. A little goes a long way. So we're going to put a little dab there. And a little dab here. So I like to set them in like that. Get them lined lined up, and then I'll put the back in just temporarily like that, and then that keeps the back square and straight. So we'll get our clamp on there. And just make sure you're flush at the front there, which we are. Give it a little squeeze. Okay, we got our piece glued in, ready for a couple of screws. Nice and easy. I find it, these screws go in a whole lot better if you just go nice and easy like that. So if you've got a variable drill, that's good. And then we'll just let that piece fall out. Okay, we got that. Okay, a cool little trick I saw here a while back to get glue out of a corner like that is just take an ordinary straw like this and kind of bring it, flatten it and kind of get to a point, and then just run it along the edge and just scoops that glue right up out of there. Easy peasy. Okay, now before we put our back on, we have to get a floor in it. So we got to get a measurement for that. And the best way I found to do that is we're going to measure the ID dimension of the drawer, which is 8 1/16. Okay? We know that our depth of our cut for the floor is 3/8 of an inch. So we want to add 3/8 and 3/8, which is 3/4. So if we take 8 1/16 plus 3/4, that gives us 8 13/16. So that tells us the width of our piece that we're going to cut for our floor. 8 13/16. Okay, so we've determined that it's 8 13/16 wide. So we go 8 13/16 wide. And same with the length. We're going to take our tape measure and we're going to butt it up against the piece we just put in. And I have 15 1/4. So we want 15 1/4 plus 3/8 plus 3/8, which is 3/4. 15 1/4 plus 3/4 equals 16. So now we know that our piece is going to be 8 13/16 wide and 16 inches deep. So we're going to go over to the table saw and get that cut. Okay, so we want to go 16 inches deep here. Okay, it all slid in real good. Everything fits good. Let's do a dry fit. See how we look there. Okay, that's all good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put some screws in these pocket holes. It's a little easier to do while it's out. Okay, a little bit of glue. It's probably enough for both, yeah. Just kind of a thin layer there. You don't want to push too much out. All right. Okay, that looks good. Clamp on there. Okay, all good. Okay. Okay, something worth mentioning here, I think, is that when you slide the bottom of the drawer into place, it kind of automatically squares everything up. But we're going to check to be sure anyway, because these have to be dead squares. So we got 18 and 5/8 there, and 18 and 9/16, so we're only 16th out. That's plenty good for square. We're in good shape. All right, so now we've got a complete drawer ready for paint or stain and finish, whichever you prefer. But I'd like to mention a couple of things here. The design of this drawer, I like these the best because they're really super heavy duty, the way that we put the bottoms in like that. And using 3/4 inch birch plywood, this is a very strong drawer. This should last many years. So I like doing my drawers this way. I've seen drawers done a lot of different ways. Some guys use 1/2 inch plywood with a different bottom. There's just so many ways to do it. But I think this is a superior drawer to one that's made out of 1/2 inch material that's stapled together. Those are fine. It just sort of depends on what type of cabinet you're making. I like to keep everything as strong and sturdy as I can. So therefore, there's no issues later on. If it takes a little extra time, a little extra material, that's not a big deal. I don't want stuff coming back to my shop that I have to figure out how to fix because I just don't like working for free. So, all right, so we got a complete box, and there it is, ready for paint, ready for stain and finish, however you like to do it. Now, something else worth mentioning is if you want to stain and finish this, the top of this, of course, you can see the lamination of the plywood. They make a really cool iron-on tape that is actually wood. It really is. It's wood with glue on the back, and it's activated by heat. And you just use an iron, cut your pieces to length, iron them on, and then you got a wood. You got a wood finish to finish out your edges with. But we're not going to do that today. So I just wanted to keep it quick and easy and simple. And here's a nice, easy, quick, quality, superior drawer that just about anybody can make with basic tools. Of course, you got to have a table saw and a chop saw, but you can do it with many other tools. But anyway, there you go. Okay, there we go. There's our drawer. I'm kind of new at this, guys, and I'm kind of stumbling along here, making video and having some fun, and hopefully you guys can pick up on some of the things that I've picked up on. And basically all I'm doing is just passing on the things that I've learned off of YouTube, and I've sort of perfected a few things that I do and passing it on as best I can. So if you like what I'm doing, give me a thumbs up. That's what spreads the word. That's what helps this channel. That's kind of what keeps the community going. So give me a thumbs up and a subscription, and we'll see you soon.